All right, in class today we focused on the second part of 4.3, interpreting the remainder. And for this part, we were focusing on two different ways to interpret our answer. Those two ways were use the remainder or make a fraction. So let's take a look at this problem right here. Now, our first step doesn't change, it's to solve the problem. So if I were to divide, I'd get a quotient and a remainder. My quotient in this case would be 3, because 4 times 3 is 12, and then how many more do I have to add to get 14? That would be 2, which is my remainder. All right, some problems, when they ask you, they might say, how much was left over? What was left? What could not be a part of the group? In those cases, we're going to be using the remainder. So if we were asked a question and we read through it and we identified that it was a use the remainder problem, our answer would have been 2. However, there are going to be other problems where we have to read through it, specifically when we're talking about measurement. When we talk about measurement, we talked about in class how you can split things into fractions. If you're talking about a piece of wood that you want to cut into equal pieces, we know that on our ruler we have those little lines in between the numbers. Those are fractions of an inch, or fractions of a foot, or fractions of a yard. And so we're going to make a fraction out of our answer because we want to use that whole entire piece of wood or string or whatever we're talking about. So when we're looking at make a fraction, what we do is our quotient, which in this case is 3, it goes in front. Our remainder, we draw a little fraction bar, our remainder goes on top, and our divisor goes on bottom. So our answer, if it was a make the fraction problem, would have been 3 2/4. Okay, let's take a look at some of the problems that you have for homework tonight that you need to solve by using these skills as well as some of the other skills that we learned yesterday. Question number 2 on your homework says, a teacher has 27 students in her class. She asked the students to form as many groups of 4 as possible. How many students will not be in a group? So first thing, step number 1 is always to divide. So we have to set up our division problem. Our division problem would be 27 divided by 4. And we're going to get a quotient and a remainder. So we have to think about our multiplication facts. 4 times what gets me close to 27 but not over? 4 times 6 gives me 24. 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, my remainder is 3. So 6 remainder 3 is my answer. Now, my question is asking me how many students will not be in a group. What my answer right now says is that I'm going to have 6 groups of 4 students. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups, and in each of these groups there will be 4 students. My remainder tells me that I'm going to have 3 students over here, but they're not going to be in a group of 4. And I want to know how many students will not be in a group. Well, guess what? That's my answer, which happens to be my remainder. So this is a use the remainder problem, because it's asking me for the students that are not going to be in a group. Which ones do not fit into our group? We have to use what's left over, use the remainder. So my answer would be 3 students. 3 students do not fit into a group. They could make another group, but it wouldn't be a group of 4. So 3 students do not fit in. Okay, question number 4 says, a carpenter has a board that is 10 feet long. He wants to make 6 table legs that are all the same length. What is the longest each leg can be? All right, we're talking about feet here, which is a unit of measure. First step is always to divide. So let's divide. We have 10 divided by 6. How many times does 6 go into 10? It goes in 1 time. And then our remainder is 4. Okay, we have to go back and think about our problem. We're cutting a piece of wood into 6 even table legs. We don't want any wood that's left over because that would be a waste of our work. So we have to think about this problem as make a fraction problem. I'm talking about wood. I'm talking about a really long piece of wood like this that I want to cut evenly into 6 pieces. In order to do that, I want to use the whole entire piece of wood. I have to figure out where I'm cutting along that wood. I'm going to be making a fraction. Okay, when we're making a fraction, our quotient goes in front. We draw our fraction line. Our remainder goes on top, and our divisor goes on bottom. Then we have to talk about the unit of measure. So the carpenter has a board that is 10 feet long, so our unit of measure is feet. So 1 4/6 feet long is how long he's going to cut each piece of wood. All right, question number 6. This question says, Joanna has 70 beads. She uses 8 beads for each bracelet. She makes as many bracelets as possible. How many beads will she have left over? All right, so the first step is always to write our division problem out. She has 70 beads, and she can put 8 beads, or she uses 8 beads on each bracelet. So 70 divided by 8. Okay, you have to think about your division or your multiplication facts. I know that 8 times 9 is 72, but that's too much. So 8 times 8 gives me 64. 64 plus what gives me 76. Okay, now our problem says how many beads will be left over. Okay, I'm talking about that leftover piece, which means I'm talking about my remainder. So this is a use the remainder type of problem. And my remainder is 6, so my question says how many beads will be left over? 6 beads. That's how many are going to be left over. That would be my answer. Okay. When you're talking about use the remainder, it's going to say left over or will not be in a group, or it's going to use those words. So think about that. Okay, if they're not in the group, or if I can't use them, then that's going to be those pieces that are left over. That's going to be my remainder. Now, when you're talking about measurement, measurement is telling us, okay, I have to split something up and I want to use the whole entire thing. So that in those cases, you're going to make a fraction. When you do the problem on the back, number 2. It's not the type of problem. It's not a use the remainder or make a fraction problem. So think about the other 2 strategies that we learned. Use the quotient or quotient plus 1. Remember, when you're using the quotient, it's going to say how many full groups or how many equal groups, and that's going to be the quotient. If you want to make sure that everybody can go, lots of times that's going to be a quotient plus 1 problem. See you tomorrow.